Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Ella96. I am a vtuber and a streamer. My Twitch will be linked in the description if you're interested. But as for today, I am going to be reading you guys some spooky, scary ghost stories from r/ghost stories on Reddit. These are apparently true stories, so yeah, get comfortable. I hope you guys feel really tired and sleepy after this and not too scared that it keeps you up. But yeah, also, this is my first time doing ASMR, so feel free to let me know if there is anything I can improve upon. But with that said, let's get into it. Okay, so I picked out a couple of stories that I really liked, and this first one is called I Heard Footsteps Outside of My Door, but I Was Home Alone. This happened to me in my final year of university when I had moved into a new student house in West Yorkshire City. It was a small, old terrace place about 15 minutes walk from campus, and I was living there with an old married couple. On the day I moved in, they casually mentioned that the house made weird noises, mostly in the living room. They laughed it off as it was the Wents, but the wife admitted that she hated being there alone. The way she said it really stuck with me. It was like she didn't really believe her own explanation. For the first couple of months, nothing obvious happened, but the whole time I had this constant, creeping feeling that I wasn't alone. It wasn't fear exactly, just this quiet certainty that someone was watching me. I kept trying to brush it off. I've lived alone before, and even abroad, and I've never been the type to get spooked easily. But from the very first night in that house, I struggled to get sleep because of it, and the feeling never really left. Then there were the voices. I'd wake up between 4 and 5 a.m. to what sounded like two people having a conversation. One voice was a man's. It was slightly clearer and slightly louder than the other, but I could never actually make out any real words. It always sounded like it was out of reach, like listening through a wall. At first I assumed it was my housemates downstairs, and so I never really questioned it, until they left. They went away for 2 months for PhD research, but the voices, they never stopped. I remember the exact moment it clicked. I woke up and I heard them talking again, and I just laid there thinking, wait, they're not home. As soon as I thought that, as soon as my thought process fully connected, both voices stopped instantly, like they knew I'd realized. After that, it wasn't every night anymore, just once or twice a week, almost like whatever it was had become more aware and careful around me. A few weeks later, something happened and I still can't explain it. It was a Saturday. I had spent the day cleaning and went up to my room around 5 p.m. After a video call with my boyfriend, I lay down in the dark with a migraine, waiting for the painkillers to kick in. Then, I heard footsteps, clear as anything, slow and deliberate footsteps coming up the stairs towards my room. My bedroom was on the top floor, and there was nothing up here except my room and a small landing, and I just knew that nobody else was home. I jumped up and I went straight for the door. It was locked. I stood there in the dark, just staring and listening. The footsteps didn't stop. They paced up and down right outside my door, back and forth, back and forth. I could hear something else too, like fabric brushing along the wall as it moved. Not rushed, not random, just walking. There were no lights on, no voices, just footsteps. It went on for a couple of minutes, then it suddenly stopped. The silence afterward felt worse. It was almost deafening. I called my boyfriend straight away, whispering that I thought someone had broken in. We tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was the neighbors, maybe someone with a key, but nothing really added up. Then, while I was still on the phone, it started again, louder this time, loud enough that he heard it too. Then I called the police. They arrived within about 10 minutes and asked me to come downstairs to let them in. I didn't want to leave my room. I was convinced that someone else was out there. But just staying put felt worse. So I went. I had my laptop open with my boyfriend still on call. As I stepped out and started down towards the stairs, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then, halfway down, as I lifted my foot to take the next step, I felt something pull my leg. Not a misstep, not a slip, a pull. Sharp and sudden, right as my foot was in the air. I fell down hard, falling several steps onto my back. The pain was instant, but the shock was worse. My boyfriend heard everything through the call, and I told him I just tripped. I got up, somehow, and let the police in. They searched everything, the entire house, every room, every cupboard, even the cellar. No one was there. No signs of forced entry, and nothing out of place. I explained the noises and that my boyfriend had heard them too. The officer was kind and said that it could be the neighbors. Old terraced houses carry sounds in strange ways. He mentioned that they get calls like this sometimes. I nodded along, but I didn't tell him about the stairs. I had never fallen like that before, or since. It didn't feel like losing my balance. It felt like something timed it perfectly and waited until my foot couldn't catch me. I later found out I fractured my tailbone and it still hasn't fully healed. After that night, the voices came back. Not every night, but just enough. Enough that I'd wake up and lie there, completely still and too scared to move until they stopped. I left for Easter not long after that and didn't come back until my housemates returned. I never told them what happened. I didn't want them to think I was crazy, or worse, to make them feel the same way I did in that house. I've always been a rational person and I don't jump to conclusions on paranormal explanations. But I've never been able to explain any of this. And I still can't shake that feeling that whatever's in that house noticed me noticing it. Let's go on to the next one. This one is called I Saw and Talked to a Ghost on a Bus. So, this happened to me on the 20th of April on the bus. I woke up that morning and thought, today I'm going to take another bus. I want to try out a different route. Something I rarely do because I'm a person of habit and I get anxious when I change my routine. But on this day, I decided to take another route and try out a different bus. At 9:20 a.m. on the bus, I met an old man that I actually recognized. His name is Aldo. It is the grandpa of one of my brother's friends. We all know him well in the family. He knows my mother, my grandmother, and everyone else. He owns a small grocery store where he sells fruit and vegetables. We say hi and we talk. He tells me about Alessio, his nephew, and my brother's friend is moving to the north of Italy because he found a job there. We talk about how bad the job market is, and we complain, we laugh. He asks about my brother, name and everything, how he's doing, if he's settled, how's my mom. Knowing this man, of course, I answered and we talked. Aldo was dressed nicely. He told me he was going to the hospital to grab some certificate, and he left the car somewhere because of traffic. Then he received a call. He had a smartphone. It's important that you know this, and you'll see why in a moment. And he couldn't quite answer the call. First try with his finger. You know how old people usually find it troublesome? Then he called that person back. After 5 minutes or so, I saw that he was getting ready to get off the bus. He told me that he had already told the driver he had to get off over here. And so we shook hands, and then he got off, saying goodbye. When I arrived at my destination around 9:45 a.m., I called my mom and I told her who I had met on the bus, because we've been friends with that family for years. Long story short, I came back home that night and my mom and my brother were asking me what the hell happened, because she called this old man's daughter, they're good friends, and she asked about Alessio and why he's moving out. Told her I met Alto on the bus and he told me all of this. But Alessio said he had no plans of moving out and going to the north of Italy at all. And also that Aldo had been home all morning until 10 a.m. He didn't even know how to take buses, and he had no business at the hospital at all. I tell my mother, what the hell are you talking about? I saw him. I talked to him. She shows me a picture of Aldo, and I say, yes, it's him. I'm telling you, we talked. Even Aldo's wife was on the phone with me that night, and she assured me he was home all morning, and Aldo also does not own a car. So I say, let's check Aldo's phone. I know he received a call when we were on the bus. They reply with, Aldo does not own a smartphone. He has one of those flip phones, old ones because he can't use modern ones. Who the hell did I talk to? And how did he know my brother's name? Why did he ask about my mom? Mind you, Aldo is a sweet old man. It's a pleasure to meet him every now and then at his shop. If it was him on the bus, it's no surprise that he wanted to ask questions, but it was not Aldo. So this next one is called My Sister-in-Law Just Had the Weirdest Paranormal Experience. A true story. My sister-in-law stayed over at my uncle's place during the weekend with my brother. There was my uncle, his wife, their 2 kids, aged 19-year-old boy, let's call him Rohan, and my 11-year-old cousin, let's call her Rohini, and of course my brother and my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law was pregnant during this time. The house was a 3-bedroom and 3-bathroom place, with my brother and my sister-in-law sleeping in one bedroom, my uncle and my aunt sleeping in another, and the kids sleeping in the living room. No one slept in the 3rd bedroom. It was around 3:55 a.m. during the nighttime when my sister-in-law had to use the bathroom to pee. So she went over to the bathroom and she did her deed, and she was washing her hands in the sink when she took a glance at the mirror in front of her. It looked out into the 3rd bedroom. You could see that the 3rd bedroom was empty and there was a couch. But when she looked in the mirror, she saw a boy sitting on the couch. And it wasn't anyone from the family. All the lights were off. She saw a silhouette of a boy and got scared and immediately ran to her bedroom. She locked the door and went back to bed. She's 100% sure she saw a boy, around the same age as Rohan, but it wasn't him, as the boy she saw had a different haircut. She knew Rohan was sleeping in the living room. She was so scared. She chanted some prayers and went back to sleep. In the morning, around 6 a.m., when my brother woke up, she had told him what had happened. He went to check the exact location she mentioned. He said that she was probably half asleep and probably imagined it in the darkness and got scared, but she insisted she saw a boy. She asked my brother to sit in the same exact position so that she can look in the mirror and see. And when he did that, she got goosebumps. That was exactly the same silhouette she saw. A boy sitting on the couch. After a while, my uncle and my aunt woke up. They shared what happened with them. Now this is where it gets interesting. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. My uncle said that when Rohini was about 3 or 4 years old, she had said multiple times that there was a boy in that room, and that boy had called out to her multiple times, gesturing with his hand to come near. Of course, since she was a baby, everyone thought that she probably just imagined it and reassured her that nothing was there. But when she said it, that my sister-in-law also saw a boy around the same age as Rohan, that's when things started to get creepy. 2 people now have the same experience with the same boy in that room. Both experiences have probably a gap of 8 years in between. My aunt and uncle had aborted a baby about 2 years after having Rohan because they didn't want a second child. My uncle thinks it could be that kid because he's similar to Rohan's age, and also because they had Rohini, even though they were set on not having a second child. They think that this is probably the second child haunting them, and he's jealous of Rohini. This next one is called Not Everything from Your Childhood Stays in Your Past. I've always been a huge fan of BuzzFeed Unsolved, especially the spooky episodes. It's always been a thing for me and my friends to watch together when we were in the mood to get scared. But when I watched the one episode about Hannah Williams, it hit me differently. It stopped feeling like a creepy story and started feeling a little too real. For some background, I was born and raised in Chile, but my family is from Japan. Growing up, my mom would casually mention things she experienced as a kid, like seeing a pale woman or feeling like someone was watching her. When she told my mom, they actually took her to 3 different psychics, and weirdly, all of them said the same thing: that a woman who drowned in a tsunami was somehow attached to her. There's even this story that the woman was supposed to marry my grandpa before he met my grandpa. And after she died, she held on to that resentment. It sounds like something out of a movie, but in my family, it was just told like a fact. But honestly, my own experience is what stuck with me the most. When I was around 6, this was back in 2008, I lived in an apartment that just felt off. Even as a kid, I could tell something wasn't right. At night, I'd feel like someone was touching my hair while I was asleep, like gently moving it out of the way, just enough to wake me up a bit. My mom would hear knocking on her bedroom door and think it was me, since I hated sleeping alone. But every time she opened the door, there was no one. There was this one night I'll never forget. I woke up because I felt cold, and I realized my bedsheets were completely off of me. Not like they had slipped off, but like they had been pulled off. Half asleep, I turned to look at my closet. That's when I saw her. A little girl, around my age, pale skin and curly blonde hair. She looked kind of European, but her expression was what made it unsettling. She looked angry, like genuinely mad at me for some reason, and I couldn't understand why. The weirdest part is, I wasn't scared. I just stared back at her, calm, almost like nothing was wrong. Looking back now, that's what freaks me out the most. I feel like I should have definitely been terrified, but I wasn't. It was just a quiet, eerie moment. After watching the Hannah Williams episode, I remembered that they mentioned sometimes entities can take the appearance of a little kid to seem less threatening. That stuck with me. It made me question what I saw that night. Like, was that really a little girl? What's also strange is that everything stopped after my dad moved out. My parents divorced when I was 9, and after that, nothing like that ever happened to me again. Around that same period, my dog passed away, and something strange did happen after that, but it felt completely different from what I experienced with the little girl. It didn't feel angry or unsettling in the same way, just unexplainable, like it belonged to something else entirely. Then, in 2023, we were having dinner with my dad's side of the family, and he randomly brought up that his apartment felt haunted. He was living in another unit in the same complex where we used to live. He talked about how things moved on their own, like a kitchen lamp swinging, drawers being left open, and socks disappearing. Little things enough to make him uneasy. He even tried lighting candles to cleanse the place, but the flames would start flickering like crazy. He admitted he was actually scared. That's when I told him what I experienced as a kid with the little girl. And honestly, that's when it clicked for me. I was wondering, what if it wasn't the apartment? What if it was somehow connected to him? My grandma, his mom, has always been into witchcraft and spiritual stuff pretty seriously, so I wouldn't be surprised if something had left an effect on him. I don't really know what to believe. I'm not going to say it was something supernatural for sure, but it's hard to ignore how everything kind of lines up. So, this next one, it's pretty cute and I really liked it, so that's why I left it in. It's called A Wholesome Ghost Story. It starts off with, so when I was in college, many, many years ago, I used to go out for runs really late at night or really early in the morning when I would get off of work. Not the safest, I know, but I was familiar with the neighborhood. I knew almost someone from every block, and I switched up the route every day. Anyway, after many years of doing this, I was familiar with the late night neighborhood scenes. I knew what cars were parked where, what parts of the sidewalks jutted up unexpectedly, who left their porch lights open, who walked their dogs really late, and who left their TVs glowing, all that sorts of stuff. Anyway, there was this one route that I didn't take too often because it was the longest, and after a 12-hour long shift, I wasn't always up for it. But whenever I did, I knew I would happen upon this one chick and her yellow lab outside of her house. Respectfully, to not freak her out, I always crossed on the opposite side of the street and gave her a friendly wave to let her know that I wasn't an axe murderer or anything. She never waved back or even acknowledged me, and usually by the time I'd reached the corner, they were already inside, so I didn't think much of it. That is, until now at least. My mother's a landscape designer, and she still lives in our old neighborhood. When she was talking to me the other day, she said that she's designing for that house. I know it's that house because it's really cute, and it's directly across the street from the park or the creek. So naturally, I asked about the girl that lived there, because I always assumed she was a nurse because she was always wearing scrubs when she walked her dog. My mom said that she didn't know, but the people that lived there were elderly, so she figured that maybe it was a previous owner or something. I thought, yeah, sure, great. People move. Makes sense. My mom calls me up the other day, and the first things out of her mouth are, "What does that chick look like?" I asked her to be more specific because we talk all the time and I bitch about a lot of people. Many of them are chicks. And she says, "The ones that you saw on your run outside of the house I'm designing for." And then I went on to describe her as the follows, because I remember her vividly. Brown hair, probably medium length, often in a bun or a ponytail, usually wearing pink or blue scrubs, lean build and not much taller than me, probably early to mid-20s, back when I saw her. My mom was quiet for a minute, and then she finally said, "So, this couple I'm designing for, they're in their 80s, and they had a daughter who was a nurse. She passed away in a car accident on her way home from work. She was 25. My heart dropped out of my asshole. My mom continued, "That was in 1999. Her name was Megan, and she had a yellow lab named Simon that she would walk out every night when she got home from her late shift at the hospital. To clarify, in case you're experiencing some confusion, I was a wee little lass in 1999, and these runs I was talking about spanned from the years 2009 to 2013. Oh wait, but there's more. My mom said that the lady told her that she used to leave the porch light open so that her daughter could see her way up to the house easier when she got home from work. Then when Megan got home, she would take Simon out, and when she was done, she'd turn off the porch light to signify to her parents that she got home safely and the dog had been taken out and that she was asleep upstairs. She told my mom that for a short while after her daughter's death, she would turn the light on out of habit, and when she would come out in the morning, it would be off. She said that her husband convinced her that it was her mind playing tricks on her and that she never actually turned the light on to begin with, but she always felt like that was her daughter's way of telling her that she was still with them. Anyways, she thanks my mom and told her to pass her thanks along to me. Me and my mom had a really solid sob session, and now we're both trying to set away good ways to communicate with each other from beyond the grave. Because we know to see a full-bodied apparition is a tall order for the afterlife. Okay, so that was the last story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys want me to do more of these. And also, if you've made it this far, let me know if you believe in ghosts or not, because I definitely do. And I don't know, maybe you should send me some spooky ghost stories to read. That would be awesome. Anyways, good night. Hope you guys have a great sleep, and yeah, bye bye.